he said, "Hey, Keith, this is my old band, and I got an offer to put a Montrose back together, and let me play it for you. And what do you think? Would you want to do this?" And that was pretty much how it was born.
Wow.
So yes, I did get back to your question. Sorry.
This is all over the place, Keith. You're allowed to wander wherever you want to go.
Yeah.
Which is good if you're listening to me right now.
G'day guys, it's Toby Rand from The Fell. You are listening to All Over the Place, where the fun sanity never ends.
Hello and welcome back to All Over the Place. I'm your host, Eric Porvoznik, coming at you with a little bit of the Sunset Strip there in the background, Little Rat Out of the Cellar, one of the greatest debut albums, one of the greatest albums of all time. It's perfect. Anyway, different show. So, before we get going, I definitely want to make sure, to thank everyone who continues to help us grow here in the new year. 2026 is continuing that trajectory from last year. Thank you so much for that. Also want to make sure I send out some love to Danny Zalesko and the Danny Zalesko Presents team. Make sure you check out dzplive.com/events for all your concert needs, coast to coast, and especially if you are here in the Southwest. Also want to send love out to Nick Bohr and the gang over at Vinyl Record Dude in Scottsdale. And if you're in Scottsdale, make sure you head down to their store down at Scottsdale and Shea. Or if you're anywhere in the world, go to vinylrecorddude.com and place an order. They'll get it to you really quickly. Sending love out to Dan Schinder and the team over at drumtalktvbrilliance.com. Make sure you're checking them out for all the great interviews, backstage footage, all the cool extras that Dan's got over there. And I want to bring into the loop here Mr. Jim Culver. How are you, my friend?
I am excellent. How are you?
As always, fantastic this year's rock. And I got my AC/DC silk screen on tonight. So sadly, it's minus Bon Scott. Otherwise, the cover from Highway to Hell.
Right on.
And coming back with us tonight, Cathy Rankin. And make sure you're checking Cathy out and everything that she's got going on at Instagram.com/RushFanatic. Welcome back from Pennsylvania, Cathy.
Hello. It's much warmer here.
Yep. And well, I'm glad you had a great time though at Bubba Bash. That looked so very cool. So yeah,
Awesome.
We'll can't wait to hear more about that. But that'll have to be on a soon to be later show because we've got with us a singer, frontman. He's got the voice to make the noise. He's sung with Quiet Riot, LA Guns, Kingdom Come, Lynch Mob, and also Montrose. And that's why we're bringing him on tonight to talk about an event coming up, Ronnie Montrose Remembered. Please welcome to the show, Keith St. John. Keith, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Yo, Eric, how you doing, man?
Ready to rock and roll. That it's a great time being able to talk with you about what's coming up in not LA. It's going to be down in Orange County coming up very soon, and that's the Ronnie Montrose Remembered. Going to be happening later this week at Saturday, January 24th, 7:30 p.m. at the Grand Theater at the Anaheim Event Center. And you've got quite the awesome resume and the time you spent with Ronnie Montrose, and this is the 10th anniversary of this show. And tell us what it was like putting together the show 10 years ago, and what influenced you to do that, and keeping it going over the 10 years, and what it means to you now that we're on the 10-year anniversary.
Well, the influence was just that Ronnie was gone, and there were a lot of us who missed him dearly, and there was a lot of my friends and also other acquaintances who were players who played with Ronnie over the years who couldn't make it to the original memorial that we did up in San Francisco at the Regency Ballroom. And, we talked about it a few times in that first year after Ronnie passed. I heard from a lot of people, oh man, I wish I could have been there, really, but we were out on tour and whatnot. And the observatory, which was then maybe called the Galaxy, or maybe it already changed to the Observatory down in Anaheim, which is a nice big room near the NAMM Convention Center, Anaheim Convention Center. They had an opening on Saturday night. There was some cancellation or something, but back in the summer, it was like August. So I got a phone call and said, hey man, you got anything you want to do at NAMM? I mean, what do you mean I want to do at NAMM? And they're like, well, the Observatory or Galaxy, whatever it was called back then, has an open night. And I'm like, me? You want me to promote a show, produce a show or whatever? They're like, yeah, man, you do all these shows all the time and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, I got something I want to do. It was that quick. And I said, this is my idea. And the venue said, that sounds good. And the agent said, that sounds good. Let's put it together. And it was an easy sell. I mean, I just called players who I knew would want to do this. And the ones that were in town for NAMM that year all showed up. And, members of lots of great bands that everybody's heard of. Because so many people were influenced by Ronnie growing up, especially a lot of California guitar players, because when they first started out, they first started out huge on the West Coast. And, a lot of these guys that come every year or, have been here 2 or 3 times and played the show, they had their first garage band playing Montrose tunes. And, he was part of their inspiration to do their thing. I've had people say like he was the reason or half the reason or 1/3 of the reason why I started playing guitar or whatever. And which I maybe didn't realize how far his reach was while we were together and playing and touring and just doing our thing. And once I started doing these events, well, it was going to be one, but then it became annual and it became these events. I realized how deep his influence went with so many people. And even some of the people I had toured with, then they came down and played at Ronnie Montrose Remembered and told me, you know what, Keith, I never told you this, but, I wasn't a guitar player. I was a singer in my first band and used to sing, Space Station Number 5 and all these songs too, man. And I'm like, well, one of these times you should sing a song.
Nice.
And these are pretty big cats, that everybody knows. So, and I think actually something else different comes alive in the room when it's the songs they grew up and learning guitar on in a way. It's something people want to come out and kind of just watch this, because there are other contemporaries. We're all in the same boat, and it's kind of like, well, what song are you playing this year? What song are you playing this year? Oh yeah, well. So there's this like healthy kind of, they're watching each other do this stuff as well, in some instances anyway. So it's
and how many of them are standing like this, the typical guitar pose as they're in the audience?
At those shows, not really too many people are.
Good. I like to hear that. That more of a camaraderie than a competition. I love it.
Yeah, I think so. And it's, we're all a little bit older now, so it's a very sane backstage event. There's nothing weird going on, and it's like whatever. I cracked my elbow the other day, and I've got this bandage on.
You're gonna have to come up with a better story for that.
Yeah, I don't know how deep I want to go. I don't know what our audience is today. So,
well, you mentioned Space Station Number 5, and of course you've got Rock the Nation and Bad Motor Scooter, the big hits. But what's been the coolest or like one of the deep cut requests you get that you really get to sink your teeth into? What have been some of the deeper ones, whether it's like Ronnie's solo or even from Gamma or just the Montrose days, deeper cuts?
Well, there are deeper cuts. There's a song called Open Fire off of Ronnie's solo. I don't know if you're familiar. And, certain guys are fans of the deep stuff. Even guys that are, big stars in, commercially successful hard rock and heavy metal bands, they've got a deep penchant for other stuff, for more progressive, whether it be, deeper blues or deeper jazz or just, progressive time signature changes and stuff like that. Which that song has all that stuff in it. Open Fire, you've got all those things happening, all those switch up of times and all that stuff. Kind of, you expect, Bill Bruford to show up to play that stuff, but a lot of these guys love doing it. There's a couple of Gamma songs. Some of the guitar players that come down, they're metal guys, but no, they're like, man, we grew up on Gamma, which was the last thing I found out about Ronnie was his band after Montrose, and he did 4 records with Gamma. And it's, there's keyboards in it and more synth keyboard stuff in it. And it's got some of his kind of progressive mid-career edge that he put on everything. And this great singer named Davy Pattison, who was an amazing, just, sang his ass off, blues guy out of Scotland or Ireland. And sorry, Scotland and Ireland, I know you guys don't like each other, but by
there's
the last
Scotland,
name,
there's Ireland, there's the bloody sea.
yeah.
That bad blood
Yeah.
runs deep and old. No doubt.
I should know by the last name Pattison, right? What, don't you fucking know anything? But yeah, man, and it was a hell of a band, man. They didn't have the commercial success, in FM radio that Montrose did in the first two records. But since people were already hooked, especially musicians and guitar players were already hooked into Montrose's thing, of course they were following everything Ronnie was doing after that. So, I got guys like Phil Demmel, who, started the band Violence and Machine Head, and he was in Slayer and Lamb of God. He plays a lot of heavy music. And he's coming down asking if he can do Voyager, which is a gamma tune, And the thing about Voyager is it's got like kind of a very comfortable but just over that rhythm and that simplicity, what Ronnie did in that lead section amongst Montrose fans is just legendary. And, in the early few shows, first 2 or 3 shows, I think Brad Gillis and Mark Bonilla would kind of argue over who's going to play what. And be like, because they, those kind of guys, I mean, they love playing the deeper cuts. So, yeah, there's all that. And then, of course, everybody loves their Bad Motor Scooter and their Space Station number 5, like you said. And I got the Fire and Rock the Nation and all that stuff. And that stuff's just it's tough rock and roll. And it's so fun to play. It's like, they were going for, I think it feels like sometimes they were going for kind of like a Led Zeppelin-y thing, when they came out. But it was tougher than that. It had elements of like the Who, like it was really, really driven that way sometimes, and maybe even like Old Free or something like that. It was just raw and rough. So those songs are just, it's fun to feel like you're in Free and singing. It's almost like singing All Right Now, except there's all these different ones, and your voice is still kind of on the verge of cracking, and it's cool as shit, So for people who don't know about Montrose, I mean, that's probably why I'm talking about all this stuff and trying to sort of explain the canvas overall of what we do. That's a little bit of a synopsis of what's going to happen. But if you've never heard of Montrose or really listened to it, just go get Montrose 1, the first record, and it's 8 songs. Listen cover to cover, and I guarantee you're going to buy a ticket to Ronnie Montrose Remembered, and you'll be down on January 24th at the Grand Theater in Anaheim at 7:30.
Awesome.
And it's an early 70s record, so it's only clocks in a little bit over 30 minutes. So you like it, boom, listen to it again. And you're
Yeah, exactly.
I really enjoyed the posthumous release, the 10 by 10.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, that just being able to honor him after he was gone. So has anyone delved into that catalog in the last 10 years that you've been doing these?
No.
Remembers?
No. I mean, not really. I don't think that record got the play. It could be been the timing, with the way the industry was changing at the time that came out. However, Ronnie and I, before I even knew what the whole Montrose band was, basically, we wrote, more than a record's worth of material that's around, and all rhythm tracks have been done. And so I will be. I've already talked to the Montrose family about us doing something with that, because by and large, the fans who are coming out and seeing us keep hitting me up every year, like, when are those songs going to, because we used to play those on tour. We used to go out and we'd play the old stuff, and then we'd play 3 or 4 of the stuff we just wrote. And I think at that time, Ronnie was willing to write like sort of incongruence with that vibe of the first record. So I actually think if it was marketed properly, it would probably get some views at least. These days, I mean, I don't know as far as streaming or CD sales, it's non-existent. But
Right.
as far as hits and likes and views and that kind of thing, I think it could do pretty good, especially amongst the Montrose crowd that I know.
Right.
So,
Is there anything in particular the Montrose family's kind of pushing for, like something they'd like to really see?
well, they like this event that we do, and are very thankful. And Ronnie's wife Lisa, she's a wonderful, wonderful person, a great human being, and she and I talked about what charity we wanted to, because I was like, in Ronnie's name, I really want to give. And Ronnie was really into this one charity called Sweet Relief, and they, primarily try to help musicians in medical needs, who either don't have insurance or have bad insurance or whatnot. And they've also branched out and into mental health as well. So they have a big sort of mental health part of what they do for people who, might be in distress and depressed and that kind of a thing. So I like giving to them, and Lisa really appreciates that we do that, and kind of we do it in Ronnie's name. And I've done some stuff with the American Cancer Society in Ronnie's name too, and a few others. So that stuff feels good. And other than that, I mean, they're not really, as far as the music biz stuff, they're like, that's your thing, Keith. You do what you want to do. If you want to get those tracks back up and finish some of those songs and put something out, we're all about it. So
That's cool. So they're supportive of it.
Yeah. At first, it was just a wave of confusion. This man was so big. If you were in his life, if you were in his band, he was just such a huge fatherly force. Let's put it that way. And, I think we had to settle down for a couple of years before we really started talking about, before it felt even cool to talk about, taking some of the stuff we did and, and putting it out, working on it further. It felt almost too sacred to do that for a little while. So,
Keith, how did you first get introduced to Ronnie?
Keyboard player who was working on the first Burning Rain record that, mine and Doug Aldridge's band. We were in the studio, and the keyboard guy we hired to come down and play the keys for real, where Doug and I just played whatever and to fill it in for the demos. He was a long time, really good friend of Ronnie's, and also was in Ronnie's instrumental band. And for you to be in Ronnie's instrumental band, you got to be a mofo player. I mean, it's nuts. So anyway, his name's Ed Roth, and
oh yeah,
you can catch Ed right now with either Robbie Krieger, and he also spent some time in I think it was the Manzarek Krieger band that they did at one point. Was at the Doors of the 21st Century, and you can catch him on tour with Glenn Hughes.
He's done a bunch of work for other people's albums.
Yeah, he doesn't call anybody. His phone just rings.
Yeah,
Ed's a great guy, and Ronnie really trusted his opinion about lots of things. And after he came and heard what I was doing in the studio, he told Ronnie, "Oh, you got to meet this guy." And we met up and we started writing together, and we never talked about Montrose at that point. Because first of all, I didn't even really know. And, I grew up in New York, and, it was just another thing I was doing. And, either over my living room or Ronnie's living room, we were just in a writing tank, and it felt good. We got together once, and Ronnie was also an avid barbecue chef. and a cook of many, many things, but he really did love to, and ribs. He really loved to, perfect the ribs. So the first time I went to his house, I was kind of surprised. He had prepared all this food, and it was in the midst of being cooked, and he was explaining it all to me. And it was a trip, man. And I don't know how I put that in the conversation, but that was my experience the first time over his house. So it was just this kind of almost like neighborly, friendly entrance, into the guy's life. And he liked what I did with the riffs he came up with. So, we spent a better part of a year doing that before he said, "Hey, Keith, this is my old band, and I got an offer to put a Montrose back together, and let me play it for you. And what do you think? Would you want to do this?" And that was pretty much how it was born.
Wow.
So yes, I did get back to your question. Sorry.
This is all over the place, Keith. You're allowed to wander wherever you want to go.
Yeah.
Which is good if you're listening to me right now.
No, those are the interesting tidbits that you don't normally get.
Yep.
Yeah, anybody, especially those guys in his instrumental band, they spent a lot of time. They really spent a lot of time together, sort of personal, outside of just the touring thing. And Jimmy Paxson typically was the drummer. I don't know if you know Jimmy, but he played with Stevie Nicks for years. Dixie Chicks. He's just one of these very called upon studio cats.
Yeah.
And he could explain Ronnie's recipes like backwards and forwards on, how to make everything that Ronnie always wanted to make. And they always went fishing together.
Yeah. So it sounds like it was a family vibe.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, he was kind of that way, though. He was also like really meticulous with electronics. And I mean, Ronnie would be in the studio and he would change transistors and resistors in the amp, and like, I don't know, replace speakers. He just, until he got the tone that he needed, he's that kind of guy. He just, his knowledge of how his amps were built was endless. I mean, it was complete, soup to nuts. So, he was really focused, ultra focused kind of guy. But even in being that, when we were personal, he'd just step back and be the mellowest, coolest cat. That's all I can say. I mean, it's about the guy really in general, that kind of explains a lot about him.
So how many years total were you with Montrose then?
Total years I'm counting is 12. It's on and off because he didn't always want to do it tour.
Yeah.
Ronnie wanted to do what he wanted to do, so he'd be like, "Keith, I'm taking the next 3 months or 2 months and I want to do another acoustic record, or I want to do this or that," and some other facet of his musical sort of landscape that he wanted to develop. And, I was fine with that because I was always doing other projects too, like in the middle and stuff. I mean, I started doing Lynch Mob while Montrose was going on, and if I had available weekends and this and that, and George and Oni were on the outs that week or that month. Hey, can you do the 21st and 22nd next month? I'm like, actually, yeah, man, let's go. Where are we going? So that stuff would happen. Neil Sean borrowed me for a little while, a couple times, and all sorts of stuff. That Bay Area crowd is they're also they all know each other and they're all family-like, Neil and the other Journey guys, a lot of those guys came out of Santana, which was up there. And a lot of our bands that we know, Tesla's from up there in the Bay Area, Metallica, and then the older bands, Eddie Money, Hagar, Montrose, of course, Jefferson Airplane, the Grateful Dead. It goes on and on and on. They
Mike Patton's
LA had.
Well, Mike Patton's off doing whatever he's doing. Just jump in with Faith No More. Help them out. I miss those guys, but I digress.
Yeah, I do. I love that record when it came out.
Well, folks, you're watching and/or listening to All Over the Place, and we are joined by Keith St. John with the Ronnie Montrose Remembered, and the event coming up this week, January 24th, 7:30, over at the Grand Theater, Anaheim Event Center. And make sure you go to RonnieMontroseRemembered.com to get your tickets. And it's a $39 general admission fee, but there's some tiered packages that people can get. Why don't you tell us about that, Keith?
Yeah, so I mean, to go through all the things that the VIPs can get is a little bit tedious, but if you go, as you said, to RonnieMontroseRemembered.com, the typical things are in the VIP packages. Access to there's a backstage. The VIPs actually have their own backstage lounge at this show because we have a big cavernous backstage. There's an on stage because the stage is probably 60 feet deep and way wider than what we need. So I've designed an on-stage side stage bar for them to be on. It's not like the Van Halen show where they're visible to the people out in the audience. They're still behind the side curtains of the stage, but they could fit about 250 people back there at that side stage bar. There is a step and repeat and a red carpet. For the VIPs, we can't really do a real red carpet out front before the show like a typical red carpet because there's just no way to get all these guys out of NAMM early and get them in one place at one time.
Yeah.
So the way we do it is, after you see a favorite performer on stage, you've got, backstage access, and we've got wranglers who will, say, hey, man, we're for Brad Gillis, or we're for, Doug Aldrich, or we're for, Red Beach, or, the list goes on, or Blas Elias, and they'll go and get them. All the artists have agreed, after they're done playing, leave 15, 20 minutes aside so they can come out and take pictures with people on the red carpet, maybe do a little signing. And they get hard items too, guitar picks, T-shirts, show posters. The super VIPs get bigger and better show posters that are signed by everybody.
Very nice.
Nice.
So there's that kind of stuff. There's more. I can't think of it all right now, but if you go to RonnieMontroseRemembered.com, as you said, you can read it all there, or you can hit the ticket link, and once you go to that page, it'll just have them all bullet pointed right next to the ticket sales. But we may have to open up more VIPs. The super VIPs are sadly sold out, but the VIPs are available, and they're getting thin, so we may have to open up another section. We'll see if we can.
Well, I already told you I'm going to stay an extra couple of days. I'm going to come. All right.
I've been in that theater as well, and it's almost one of those places where every seat's a good seat. Don't you feel like that, Keith?
Yeah, it's well built. It's an old school theater, and it was built for the back row to be able to see well.
Yeah.
And there's a good, what would you call it, pitch to it, so that you don't feel that far away.
Yeah. So Keith, it's the 10-year anniversary. How do you keep the show fresh every year? Because these are such dedicated fans. So what do you do besides rotating different players? What do you try to do to keep the show kind of fresh for the people that may have seen it year after year?
Well, like I was saying earlier, a big reason a percentage of people do come to this show is because they want those same moments that they go, like when you go and see your favorite band,
yeah,
you want to see them open with rock and roll.
Yeah.
Like you want to see Zeppelin open up with rock and roll, and you want to see them segue The Song Remains the Same right into the Rain song. You want to see that, and you want to feel it with that energy. And however similar or different our energy was when we were, playing compared to like when Sam and Bill and Denny were playing with Ronnie, there's something about it something about the way we did it. And I should mention that some of the players that were in and out of the band with Ronnie and I also come to these. So this year we have Dave Ellefson, who spent 3 or 4 years in the band playing bass with Ronnie. So, you know, these guys got to see us do this together before. So that's part of something for them. Also, Sean McNabb, he also spent some time in Montrose. Who else? There's somebody else, but it's not hitting me right now. But those are the kind of things that happen. And the special moments, there's always something new that happens at the show. And I don't want to give too much away, but for instance, there are 2 different guitar players that were in the same huge band that are going to be there this year. And I specifically have them playing on the same song so that we can break the guitar solo down and they can do a battle back and forth on stage which people are going to want to see.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
You know,
I think I know who you're talking about, and I'm not going to say it.
Yeah. I like to leave that stuff as kind of surprises, but they know stuff is going to happen. Our good friend Bob Buckman is going to stop down, and he'll take out some time on stage and do a little bit of his schmoozing and his talking, and a little bit of co-hosting part of the show too. Bob Buckman, for people who don't know, is he's one of the bosses at all of Sirius XM radio. So, you know, he's like sort of Eddie Trunk's boss and Mark's boss and those guys, and, you know, program director. Bob was coincidentally where I grew up on Long Island. Bob was the program director and the Big Cheese star. Like, these DJs back then were superstars because everyone listened to FM radio. WBAB in Babylon, even in New York City and over the puddle in Connecticut. I mean, BAB was the shit. And you know, growing up, Bob was the guy. You know, and it's so odd for me, but this always happens to me in my life. With almost everything, there's always a string into like 9 different things.
Yeah.
That someone shows up. And so Bob wound up marrying a good friend of mine. And so then he started hanging in our circle. And it's just such an odd thing for me. You know, this is Bob Buckman. But, you know, there were 2 Long Island bands that he famously helped get signed with Atlantic Records: Zebra and Twisted Sister.
Yeah.
In that order. Zebra's album went gold, I believe, faster than any other record ever in Atlantic Records history.
Wow.
That's how big they were just in the New York tri-state area.
Yes.
Randy Jackson,
Love it.
who is the singer guitar player from Zebra, will be at the show this year.
And he's the nicest guy on the planet.
Absolutely.
He's such a good guy.
Absolutely. Such a perfect gentleman. He did the show before years ago, and my next time going back to hang with some friends back on Long Island, which Randy still has, that's where he lives. We went out, we went down to, you know, by the beach, by the South Bay, and we just had a nice big old lunch one day and just shot the shit. And it was like the most mellow, you know, cool, like you said, one of the nicest guys around. And yeah, easy breezy, man. No, you know, neither one of us trying to be rock stars.
Those are the best kind.
Whatever that means. But so it's going to be cool to have Randy there and have Bob there, because I'm sure Bob's going to want to have something to say about all that, you know, that happened back then.
Very cool.
And just me seeing those guys together, because that was all legendary.
Yeah.
By the time I played my first club gig, you know, they were out. You know, their albums were out long before that, and the sort of lore amongst the Long Island rock bands, you know, trying to come up was like those guys who already did it. So it's almost surreal to have these cats as like actually good friends in my life now.
Very cool. So for people who haven't been to the show, Keith, do these guys, when they come on stage, do they sometimes talk a little bit before they get into their jamming and their songs?
Here and there, not much. But there are, I think when something's called for, definitely people do talk. So, I don't know what to expect on that end. They're welcome to, but it isn't a thing where every time an act comes on,
Yeah.
we're interviewing them. We're just kind of, since there's so many songs and so many players coming on and off and singers, we're just it's just moving along. Stage goes dark for a second and then comes back up and we introduce and bam, it's the next act.
Well, Cathy, what is your favorite Montrose song that maybe you would want to sing?
Now you're on the spot.
Oh, I wouldn't sing any of them, but I was just listening before we did this interview. It was funny, earlier today I was driving, and I don't know if it must have been an older video, but Keith, I believe you were singing it. It was One Thing on My Mind.
Fun one.
And I really love that song.
Yeah, it's a great tune, man. It really is. And I'm so sorry to tell you and the listeners right now, I just gave that song away singing-wise to Dino Jalusic, who famously was in Whitesnake for the last bunch of years, helping out Coverdale with his vocals, and he's in the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, of course, as one of their primary singers. I gave him 3 choices of songs, and he took that one.
It's going to be great no matter who sings it.
I wanted him to sing one of the songs from the first record. I do love that one, but I love a lot of them. I love all of them, really. So
I don't know. I love that one. It just has that groovy, just get you in the mood kind of song.
Wait a minute. Eric just mentioned you singing, right? So let's think about this. I was just talking to Mark Tureen from the Bullet Boys, and maybe I should or maybe I shouldn't say this, but we were talking about him coming down and singing the song Free Ride, which is an Edgar Winter tune. And there's some really cool backup song vocals on that. And I was thinking, me and Randy would be probably good to sing backups on the side stage with that. But we need a third person.
Well, I just learned today that Cathy is going to be hosting the event. So, Cathy, and singing or potential singing aside, what's it mean for you to be hosting this event?
Well, it's really cool. Keith and I had worked together at the Metal Hall of Fame before. He was performing there. That's how I first met him. And just instantly, he's so easy to talk to, as you can see. So I just always loved his energy, and I knew he did the Ronnie Montrose Remembered show, and I didn't get to go to it, and I always wanted to, but I had conflicts. And then this year he reached out, and since I'm already going to be there hosting, another event, he was kind enough to invite me to get involved in this one, and I'm really excited about it because I want to see the show, and now I get to see it with a bird's eye view. And B, it's funny, Keith, because as you were describing how this show came about and what it's really all about, and how much of an influence he had on so many people, and you said you didn't realize the depths of his reach. I love that, and I totally relate to that, because the event I just hosted in Philadelphia, the Bubba Bash, it's like you're talking about the same kind of thing. Neil Peart was the same kind of player, where just you realize how many people he impacted, and there's just, if you know, and there's just such a demand for it that you don't realize is there. And I think that's what's cool about this show, is that it could go on, for something to go on for 10 years, it's got to have something really special about it, because for people to keep showing up year after year, there's just, in the way you kind of describe how you personally knew Ronnie, it's just kind of got that same sort of family vibe. And I'm sure the people that are there, they're bonded together, even in the audience, they probably get
Yes.
other Montrose fans.
Yes.
And it's just really kind of, it's just a kind of special vibe you can't really articulate, but when it happens, it's really special. So I think to be part of that is going to be really cool for me, because I love shows like that where it's not just, anybody comes and sees it and it's just another show. It's something special.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And you mentioned an important aspect is that, certain fans, they've bonded with each other over the years.
Yeah.
And we've seen this with other bands when, we go backstage, you and I or whatever, and we're hanging out, at any of these big shows, whether, Night Ranger, REO, or GNR, you always see this one particular group of people. And everyone knows they're going to be there. So there's that family also connected to it.
Cool.
Another thing that's happening this year that I just thought of, we are doing a pop-up store. We're affiliated with a pop-up store this year that's only happening at NAMM at the Ronnie Montrose Remembered Show, which is Riot Stitch Rockwear, run by Sherry Lou. So, which anybody who's buying rock and roll clothing these days and shopping, doesn't have their head buried completely in the sand knows Riot Stitch Rockwear. And her business has just taken off like a bat out of hell in the last 2 or 3 years, because she's just an amazing clothing designer, and
entrepreneur.
Also just she's just an amazing businesswoman too. She gets it all done so fast. Like everything's on time and everything fits everyone perfectly. She's made pieces for me, and I was just skeptical that anything was going to fit. Like when someone comes up to you and they're like, "Here, I made these for you," and it's a pair of pants, and you're like, kind of, especially us rockers, we're used to just finding just the right thing, and it's like, man, she did all that work, and then you're feeling bad, like you're going to put this on and try to be nice about it, Every single time it was like, oh my God, how did she do this? And I was like, I physically said, how did you do this? How come this fits me? So, I mean, she's got an eye for just body types, and she makes a lot of custom clothing for a lot of cats in the industry. Brad Gillis, who'll be playing guitar at the show, was one of the first friends of mine that I turned her on to, and she made some stuff for Brad. And I'm sure there'll be a few other people who have her stuff, whether or not the Montrose Remembered crowd or stage is the place to wear them. They might be a little bit too over the top for some of that stuff, but she will have a pop-up store there, and that's another thing. That's sort of another little tidbit that our people who come every year will be like, oh yeah, wow, I heard of that. And so there's always new stuff popping up.
Well, I know one person is going to be at the pop-up store.
What's that?
I said I know one person who's going to be at the pop-up store.
Yeah.
You might have to remind me I'm supposed to be working.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, talk about a kid in a candy store. When you see the stuff she makes, it's just like, I want every single thing that I see. I'm like, can you make that for a dude? Because that's exactly what I want. Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of dudes get their custom clothing based just on that. Anyway, the chick's badass, and she books at riotstitchrockwear.com. You mentioned the Rush crowd. You were talking about Neil Peart for a minute. Yes. One of the drummers I just signed up recently for the show is Ty Dennis, who is Alex Lifeson's drummer in his solo stuff.
Okay.
So, and Alex comes to LA to record his stuff, and Ty is his guy.
Cool.
That's his drummer. And going back to the tie-in this has another tie-in to Ed Roth, because Ty also plays with Robbie Krieger in the Robbie Krieger band with Ed Roth. So, there's a lot of full circles, man, and they're going to keep happening.
Yes. It is really crazy once you get involved how interconnected everybody is.
No, it really is. And you'll see more of that down at the show, without exhaustively mentioning everybody who's coming down. I mean, we haven't said it yet. So if you're still tuned in and you're still curious about stuff, there's members of Guns N' Roses, Mr. Big, Winery Dogs, White Snake. There's a few different people from White Snake. I already said we've got people from the Robbie Krieger Doors band kind of stuff. Rod Stewart band, Allman Brothers band, Winger, Megadeth, Y&T, Armored Saint, Edgar Winter band, Ace Frehley band, Mr. Big, REO, Slaughter, Trans-Siberian Orchestra, LA Guns. We already said Night Ranger, Dokken, Great White, Lynch Mob, of course, and there are some more that I haven't named.
Well, Mr. Big and Winery Dogs, I know there's a common thread there. So
yeah, that's true.
And we also have to mention the Fell now with them, but that's this little throwback. And Jim, Robbie Krieger is now the glue on the show for 4 episodes.
I noticed that. Yeah. Unexpectedly, but I'll take it.
Yes.
And I want to follow up on what Eric said. If you have not checked out Billy Sheehan's new band, The Fell, you need to check that band out. It's incredible.
We interviewed those guys.
Yep. Plug. Yeah.
They're great.
They're up and going, man, and they're really something. Every one of Billy's bands is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Always.
Well, what's that like for you in terms of recruiting all these people through the 10 years? I mean, how much is it you going out and finding people or just exploring? Do you want to come and do this? And how much of it is people coming to you and saying, hey, I'd love to do this?
Well, it's probably 50-50-ish,
Mm-hmm.
It's but a lot of the people, certain people know I'm going to call them. And then, certain people, like, for example, I mean, a lot of times people aren't available around the NAMM convention. They're already on tour. And, I've gotten some people call me and say, hey, man, I just wanted to, give you a shout out and say, I'd love to do the Ronnie thing with you again this year, but we're playing in Alaska or whatever. And so it kind of works both ways. I think I remember Sean McNabb was the first person in 2025 when we hit the fall to actually call me up and say, hey, man, let's do the Ronnie thing this year. So
that's cool.
Yeah, man. I don't know if that has any special significance, but it's something I remember.
Well, that says something when you got that insane of a lineup and people are calling you to set it up. That's awesome.
I was just going to say, when you can get that many people to one event, that says something.
Yeah, it definitely says something about Ronnie's legacy.
Exactly. It's how far and deep he reached with his musical influence, his guitar sound influence. Eddie Van Halen used to talk about, all the tone Ronnie got and the sound that he got in the studio, and specifically hired Ted Templeman because Ronnie had Ted in the studio producing his first record to try to get that same live feel and some of those same tones. So, he's definitely like a guitar player. He's like a sort of a Jeff Beck guy. Jeff Beck really was never in like a Van Halen or anything like that, but almost every rock guitar player on the planet you ask, back of a certain age, had Jeff Beck as their number 1 or number 2 or number 3 guy. They always would say, well, Jeff Beck and Hendrix, or Jeff Beck and Ronnie Montrose, or, Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Ronnie's almost like the American version of that, in a way.
And from the younger generation, I noticed that Dax Nielsen, Rick's son, of course, who was in Cheap Trick, one of the younger guys coming in and playing at the Ronnie Montrose Remembered shows. Who are some of the other younger cats coming in and wanting to get involved with this? And the influence going down to the next generation?
There have been, Jason Hartless was pretty young, drummer, but he was playing with Ted Nugent, He was in Ted Nugent's band when he was coming down and doing these shows. There have been on and off, some younger cats. Gus G has wanted to do it a whole bunch of times. if for those who aren't familiar, I mean, he was Ozzy's
guy,
last big time guitar player. He's got a show that night. He's got his own show that night, so he's not going to make it. Same thing happened last year, I think. So, and he lives overseas, so he doesn't always even come out during NAMM. I don't know. It's a good question. I would say, even if they're younger kind of guys, they usually have some kind of an affiliation with an older band or an older styled band.
Yeah. Dino's fairly young.
Yeah. I was going to say Dino, but then again, his affiliations are with Whitesnake and TSO, which is kind of TSO sort of, I don't want to say it, but it's sort of that aging rocker feel to it,
Well, it's a good mentorship program, and then it just gets into the DNA for the next when they pass it, when they're the mentors.
Yeah. We're not doing it this year, but some of the years we do. Guitar Player Magazine has come down, and they made up a Ronnie Montrose award that
cool.
they've done sometimes. They didn't do it this year, but that's all about young and up and coming guitar players who, that would send in videos and stuff, and they'd select, the most promising new talent and come down to the show and do the award on stage.
Oh, that's cool.
And, I try not to do too much of that kind of stuff because we already have within our own sphere, we already have a lot of sort of stops. We got to stop for a minute with the Sweet Relief charity stuff and talk about this and talk about that and la, la, la. So, it can run.
Right.
It can run some extra hours, if you let it. So.
Yeah. Got to keep it moving.
But but that was we used to see some young guitar players during that thing, because then they would get up and play, and we'd do a whole segment of them playing. And usually, they join in, they learn a Montrose tune or two, and get up alongside the rock stars and jump in.
Nice. Actually,
I just remembered there is something like that happening this year. It's not an award, but there is a special advanced young guitar player kid, and which he's going to come out and do some playing on one of the songs this year. So
nice.
Excellent. Well, I definitely can't thank you enough, Keith, for being the glue that keeps this thing together over 10 years now. And folks, make sure you head over to RonnieMontroseRemembered.com. Get down to the show. It's going to be NAMM weekend. So it's Saturday, 124, 7:30 p.m. Grand Theater. They're at the Anaheim Event Center. Look for Keith. Look for Cathy, the hostess with the mostest. And again, Keith. Thanks for joining us here on All Over the Place to tell us all about that and continuing Ronnie's just fantastic and amazing legacy.
Eric, thanks so much for having me. And we're so glad to have Cathy here this year. And, it's going to add a different, I'm going to say bubble to the show, like a bubbliness that we don't normally have. And maybe we do, but, it's a different energy,
Even female energy.
And I'm looking forward to it.
It's going to be fun. I think it's going to be a blast.
Absolutely.
I'm excited.
They are not going to know what hit them.
Fine, I'm coming. I told you I'm going to stick around. I'll be
Eric,
there.
you got to get out there.
Yeah, well, I'll be there already. I'll see what I can do to make it happen. But yeah.
Well, Keith,
all right,
we got to give you credit because you've been doing this. You've put your heart and soul into it and kept it together for all these years, and that says something too. I think a lot of people come because of you.
Well, yeah, I've always been, if people know me, I've always been kind of really empathetic, in the middle of a crowd and with music. And, if I can't just be me and have the music take me there, I'm not the guy that goes up on stage and knows that I'm going to walk over there and I'm going to do this monkey move. Then I'm going to go over there and put my arm around the guitar player. Then I'm going to do this. And then I'm going to jump off the drum riser. And, I'm just not that guy. And, but if the music makes me do stuff and makes me feel that way, and I have that good of a time, and you know, it's not just me. I think there's a lot of performers like that. And when you see them just in their vibe, there's nothing like it, you know. And the Montrose music and Ronnie Montrose, the man, and some of these other players that we play with, you know, they just do that for me. It's beyond fun, you know. It's something like deeper in your gut, in your spirit, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that energy within, some of it's in me and a lot of the other guys who come down too with this music, I think that is what keeps people just wanting to come back to this year after year. It's an old school way for performers. You know, it's not something you sort of invented online and it looked good on the internet, and then now you've got to go out and play. And, you know, maybe it's not really, maybe that wasn't really your wheelhouse, you know. The whole like being in front of like 10,000 people really wasn't, me don't really know how to talk to 10,000 people is what I'm trying to say for some people. And they can feel that.
Yeah.
You know, they can feel that. And I don't even know how to play a small room. I always tell people I suck. You know, you got to get me up at like the whiskey. I'm horrible. You know, I start floating when I can't see people in the audience, when it's like, you know, then I'm better for some reason. I don't know why. Anyway, blah, blah, blah.
Intimate work.
Enough about me. Let's talk about me.
Well, Keith St. John, thank you once again. And, you know, folks, again, RonnieMontroseRemember.com. Get down there. The super VIPs are sold out, but get a VIP seat or a general admission seat. Get down there and see the show. And, thanks again for joining us here on All Over the Place. And don't forget, folks, check out Danny Zalesko Presents, dzplive.com/events, Vinyl Record Dude, and Drum Talk TV Brilliance.com, and Cathy Rankin, keeping track of her over at Instagram.com/RushFanatic. Fun times here on All Over the Place, and thanks everyone for liking, sharing, subscribing, commenting, all that stuff. We'll be back really soon. Till then, take care.
Peace out.
Later.
All Over the Place, where the fun sanity never ends.